My name is Caroline Matthews. I'm 35 years old, and the moment I realized my mother was capable of destroying me completely was when I walked into a lawyer's office 3 days after my grandmother's funeral and discovered that the $2.3 million inheritance she'd left me no longer existed. "I'm sorry, Ms. Matthews," the estate attorney said, his face carefully neutral, "but according to our records, you signed a waiver relinquishing your inheritance in favor of your brother, Ethan Matthews. The document was notarized 6 weeks ago." I stared at him, my brain refusing to process the words. "That's impossible. I never signed anything." He slid a document across his mahogany desk. "Is this not your signature?" I looked down at the paper. My name was there, in handwriting that looked eerily similar to mine but wasn't quite right. The loops were too wide. The slant was off. "That's not my signature," I said slowly. "Someone forged this." The attorney's expression shifted slightly. "Ms. Matthews, that's a serious accusation. The document was notarized by a licensed professional." "I don't care who notarized it. I didn't sign it. I was in Boston 6 weeks ago. I can prove it. I have credit card statements, flight records, hotel receipts." He was quiet for a moment. "If what you're saying is true, this is a criminal matter. You'll need to file a police report." "Who presented this document to you?" Another pause. "Your mother, Linda Matthews, brought it to us. She said you decided to give your inheritance to your brother because he needed it more." "Of course she did." My mother, Linda Matthews, had spent my entire life positioning my younger brother, Ethan, as the family's priority. Ethan the troubled one. Ethan the sensitive one. Ethan who needed more support, more money, more attention, more everything. And I was Caroline, the responsible one, the one who could handle things on her own, the one who didn't need help because I was so capable. Except capable was just code for, "We're going to give everything to your brother, and you'll be fine because you always are." I'd known my grandmother left me money in her will. She'd told me as much before she died. "Caroline," she'd said, holding my hand from her hospital bed 3 months before she passed, "I'm leaving you everything. The house, the investments, all of it. Not because I love you more than Ethan, but because I know you'll use it wisely. You'll build something with it. Your brother, he just burned through it." My grandmother had been a sharp woman, even at 87. She'd built a small fortune through careful real estate investments over decades. Her estate was worth approximately $3.8 million. She'd left $1.5 million to various charities, $500,000 to my mother, her daughter, and $2.3 million to me. Ethan got $50,000, enough to be meaningful, but not enough to destroy himself with. It was fair, measured, and based on a lifetime of watching my brother spiral through addiction, failed businesses, and constant crises. But my mother had other plans. I left the attorney's office in a daze and drove straight to my parents' house in suburban Connecticut. They lived in the same colonial I'd grown up in, a beautiful 4-bedroom home my grandmother had helped them buy 30 years ago. I didn't knock. I used my key and walked in. My mother was in the kitchen, arranging flowers from the funeral. She looked up when I entered, and something flickered across her face. Guilt, fear. It was gone in an instant, replaced by her usual pleasant smile. "Caroline, I didn't know you were coming by. I would have made lunch." "Where's my inheritance?" She blinked. "What?" "My grandmother's inheritance, the $2.3 million she left me. Where is it?" My mother set down the vase carefully. "Oh, that, sweetheart, we need to talk about that. You forged my signature." "I did no such thing." The attorney showed me the waiver. "That's not my signature, Mom. You committed fraud." She had the audacity to look offended. "Caroline, don't be dramatic. I did what needed to be done." "You stole from me." "I reallocated resources to where they were needed most," she said, her voice taking on that prim, lecturing tone I knew so well. "Your brother is struggling. He's been in and out of rehab. He has debts. He needs a fresh start. You have a good job. You're stable. You don't need the money." Grandma didn't understand Ethan's situation when she made that will. She was old and set in her ways. I corrected her mistake. I felt like I was falling through the floor. That money was mine. Grandma left it to me. Grandma was being vindictive toward Ethan. She never understood him, never gave him a fair chance. I wasn't going to let her punish him from beyond the grave. "Punish him, Mom. He's been to rehab 4 times. He's crashed 3 cars. He's stolen from you." He's sick, Caroline. He needs help, not judgment. And I needed my inheritance. That was my money. My mother's face hardened. Don't be selfish. You have a career, you have opportunities. Your brother has nothing. Someone had to think about what was fair for both my children, and since you weren't going to do the right thing voluntarily, I made the decision for you. By forging my signature and stealing $2 million. I didn't steal anything. I'm your mother. I know what's best for this family. I stood there shaking with rage and disbelief and realized something terrible. She genuinely believed she'd done the right thing. In her mind, taking my inheritance and giving it to Ethan wasn't theft. It was fairness. It was helping. It was what a good mother does. And she expected me to accept it. I'm going to the police, I said quietly. Her face went white. You wouldn't dare. Watch me. Caroline, if you do that, you'll destroy this family. Your father could lose his job. The scandal alone would ruin us. Ethan would lose his chance at recovery. And for what? Money you don't even need. It's not about need, Mom. It's about the fact that you committed a felony. I'm your mother. And you stole from your daughter. I was shouting now, years of frustration pouring out. You've spent my entire life putting Ethan first. Everything I've ever accomplished, you've dismissed because I'm so capable, while Ethan gets unlimited chances and unlimited money and unlimited forgiveness. That's not true. Isn't it? When I got into Harvard, you spent the whole dinner talking about Ethan's community college acceptance. When I graduated summa cum laude, you left early to pick Ethan up from a party. When I got my first real job, you asked if I could loan Ethan money for rent. Every single milestone in my life has been overshadowed by whatever crisis Ethan was having. You're exaggerating. And now you've literally stolen my inheritance and given it to him. How is that not putting him first? My mother's eyes filled with tears. I thought you'd understand. I thought you, of all people, would want to help your brother. I would have helped him on my terms, with money that I chose to give. You took that choice away from me. Well, it's done now, she said, straightening her spine. The money's been transferred. Ethan's already used it to pay off his debts and buy a condo. There's no taking it back. I stared at her. He's already spent it. Most of it. He needed to get his life in order. Ethan had blown through $2 million in 6 weeks. Of course he had. I'm going to the police, I repeated. If you do, I'll tell everyone what you're really like, how selfish you are, how you've always resented Ethan, how you refused to help your own brother when he was at his lowest. I'll make sure everyone knows that you chose money over family. It was a threat, a clear, calculated threat. And that's when I realized my mother wasn't just enabling Ethan. She was willing to destroy me to protect him. I walked out of that house and drove straight to the police station. The detective I spoke with was a tired-looking woman in her 50s named Detective Sarah Morrison. I laid out everything, the forged signature, the stolen inheritance, my mother's admission. Detective Morrison listened carefully, taking notes. Do you have proof the signature was forged? I can provide evidence I was in Boston when this was supposedly signed. I can have a handwriting expert analyze it, and I can take a polygraph if needed. And your mother admitted to forging the document. Yes, but I didn't record it. She nodded slowly. This is definitely fraud, potentially identity theft as well, depending on how the notary situation played out. We'll need to investigate. How long will that take? Couple weeks, maybe a month. We'll need to interview your mother, your brother, the notary, the attorney. We'll need to see the original documents. What happens to my mother if she's charged? Forgery, identity theft, and fraud at this dollar amount. We're talking felony charges. If convicted, she could face significant prison time. The thought made me sick, but not sick enough to back down. I want to press charges. Detective Morrison studied me carefully. You sure? These family cases get messy, really messy. I'm sure. What I didn't know then was just how messy it would get, or how much worse my family would make it before I finally won. The investigation moved faster than I expected. Within a week, Detective Morrison called me back. We interviewed the notary who supposedly witnessed your signature. Turns out, he's your mother's neighbor. He admitted she brought him the document already signed and asked him to notarize it as a favor. He didn't verify your identity because he trusted Linda. So he's complicit. He's definitely in trouble. Notaries have a legal obligation to verify identity. He failed to do that. What about my mother's? We brought her in for questioning. She claims you gave her permission to sign on your behalf because you were too busy to deal with estate matters. I felt my blood pressure spike. That's a lie. Can you prove it? I have emails with the estate attorney asking about the inheritance. Why would I be asking about it if I'd waived it? Good, send those to me. We're building the case, but Ms. Matthews, I need to warn you, your mother has hired a lawyer. A good one. This is going to be a fight. Of course she had, probably using the $500,000 my grandmother left her. Over the next month, things escalated in ways I couldn't have imagined. My mother didn't just defend herself, she went on the offensive. First, she called my employer. I was working at a mid-sized pharmaceutical company as a senior research director. I'd been there for 8 years, had a stellar reputation, was being considered for VP. My boss, Dr. Richard Chen, called me into his office one morning looking uncomfortable. Caroline, I need to ask you something, and I apologize in advance for how personal this is. My stomach dropped. Okay. I received a call yesterday from someone claiming to be your mother. She said you've been struggling with some mental health issues. She mentioned you're accusing her of crimes she didn't commit, that you're experiencing paranoid delusions, and she's worried about your stability. I closed my eyes. She's lying. I figured, but I needed to hear it from you. What's actually going on? I explained the whole situation, the inheritance, the forgery, the police investigation. Dr. Chen listened without interrupting. I believe you, he said finally, and for the record, I told your mother I couldn't discuss personnel matters with her and ended the call. But Caroline, this is concerning. If she's willing to call your employer with false information, what else might she do? I don't know. Document everything, keep records, protect yourself. He was right to be worried. Because my mother's next move was even worse. She went to my apartment building and told the landlord I was behind on rent and facing eviction. This was completely false. I'd always paid on time, but she was convincing enough that the landlord called me asking about my situation. She called my bank claiming someone had stolen my identity and requesting they freeze my accounts for my protection. That took 3 days to sort out. She posted on Facebook, tagging me, about how heartbroken she was that her daughter was going through a difficult time and lashing out at family. The post got 200 sympathetic comments from people who had no idea what was actually happening. She called my friends, my colleagues, distant relatives, anyone she could think of, spinning a narrative that I was mentally unstable and making false accusations. It was a coordinated character assassination campaign. And it was working. People started looking at me differently. Even people who knew me well began to question whether maybe I was overreacting, whether maybe this was all a misunderstanding. The whisper campaign was brutal. Caroline was always so intense. She's probably just stressed from work. Family disputes can bring out the worst in people. I felt like I was losing my mind. But then something happened that changed everything. I got a call from the estate attorney. Ms. Matthews, I've been reviewing the files more carefully, and I found something you need to see. I went to his office that afternoon. He handed me a folder. Inside were bank statements showing that not only had my mother forged the waiver, but she'd also been systematically draining my grandmother's accounts in the months before her death. Small transfers, carefully hidden, totaling over $400,000. Your grandmother never saw these, the attorney said. The statements were sent to your mother's address because your grandmother had trouble managing her mail. Your mother was supposed to review them and bring anything important to her mother's attention. But instead, she stole from her own dying mother. It appears so. I sat there, staring at the evidence of my mother's betrayal, and something inside me crystallized. This wasn't about the inheritance anymore. This was about a pattern of manipulation, theft, and abuse that had been going on for years. And I was done being quiet about it. I took the evidence to Detective Morrison. She reviewed it carefully, her expression growing darker. This changes things. We're not just talking about forging a signature anymore. This is elder abuse, financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult, and potentially more fraud charges. What happens now? Now we bring the DA in. This is officially a major case. The district attorney's office moved quickly once they saw the evidence. Within 2 weeks, my mother was arrested. The charges were extensive: forgery, identity theft, elder financial abuse, fraud, wire fraud for the electronic transfers. Total potential prison time if convicted on all counts, 15-20 years. My father, who'd been silent through most of this, finally called me. "Caroline, please, your mother made mistakes, but you're destroying her. Is this really what you want?" "She destroyed herself, Dad. I'm just holding her accountable." "She's your mother." "She stole from her dying mother. She stole from me. She's been running a smear campaign against me for months. At what point do I get to defend myself?" "She did it for Ethan." "Everything is always for Ethan. When do I matter? When does what she did to Emmy matter?" Silence. "You know what, Dad? You've always been complicit in this. You watched her favor Ethan our entire lives. You watched her steal from me. You did nothing. You're just as guilty." "That's not fair." "Call me when you're ready to admit what she really is." I hung up. The preliminary hearing was set for 3 months out. In the meantime, I had to figure out how to put my life back together. My reputation had been damaged by my mother's campaign. My family was fractured beyond repair, and I was facing the reality that my mother might actually go to prison. But I also had something else: clarity. For the first time in my life, I wasn't trying to earn their love or prove my worth. I was just existing on my own terms. And that freedom, as painful as it was, felt like finally being able to breathe. What I didn't realize was that my mother's arrest was just the beginning of the real war. Because Ethan, who'd been silent through all of this, was about to make his move. And it would be worse than anything my mother had done. 2 weeks after my mother's arrest, I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Caroline," the voice was slurred, desperate. "It's Ethan." I should have hung up. Instead, "What do you want?" "I need to talk to you, in person, please. Just give me 30 minutes. "No." "Caroline, please, I'm begging you. I'll come to wherever you are. I just need to explain." Something in his voice made me pause. He sounded broken in a way I'd never heard before. "Fine coffee shop on Main Street, 1 hour, and Ethan, if you're high, I'm leaving immediately." "I'm not, I swear, thank you." I arrived at the coffee shop early, chose a table near the window, and waited. Ethan showed up exactly on time, which was shocking in itself. He looked terrible, thinner than I remembered, dark circles under his eyes, wearing clothes that hung off his frame. He sat down across from me without ordering anything. "Thank you for meeting me. You have 30 minutes. He nodded, hands shaking slightly. "I need to tell you something, about the money, about Mom, about all of it." I waited. "I didn't know she forged your signature. I swear to God, Caroline, she told me you'd agreed to give me the inheritance because you didn't need it." "And you believed her?" "I wanted to believe her. I was desperate. I owed money to some really bad people. I was going to lose my apartment. I was in a dark place." "You're always in a dark place, Ethan." He flinched but didn't argue. "You're right, I know you're right, but this time was different. These weren't credit card companies or landlords. These were people who break legs." "So you took stolen money to pay off drug debts?" "I didn't know it was stolen." "Didn't you think it was strange that Grandma's will left you 50,000, but suddenly you're getting 2 million? Didn't that raise any red flags?" He looked down at the table. "Mom said Grandma had changed her mind before she died, that she created a new will, but the lawyer had the old one. I thought Mom was just correcting it." "That's convenient." "I know how it sounds, but Caroline, I'm not lying. When the cops came to interview me last week and showed me the evidence, I nearly threw up. Mom had me sign papers. I thought they were just estate forms. I didn't read them carefully enough." "What papers?" "Transfer authorizations. She told me I needed to sign them to receive the inheritance. I was so desperate, so relieved, I just signed where she pointed." He pulled out his phone and showed me photos he'd taken of the documents. I examined them carefully. They were complex legal forms that, to someone not paying attention, could have looked like standard inheritance paperwork. But they were actually acknowledgments that he'd received money from me voluntarily. My mother had been more calculated than I realized. She'd set Ethan up to be her shield. "She used you," I said slowly. "Yeah, I figured that out. Too late, but I figured it out." "Why are you telling me this?" Ethan looked up and his eyes were wet. "Because I'm tired, Caroline. I'm so fucking tired of being the broken one, the addict, the one who needs saving. I've been that person for so long, I don't even know who I'd be without it." "Ethan." "Let me finish, please." He took a shaky breath. "I've spent 30 years being Mom's project, her wounded bird, and she's spent 30 years enabling me because it made her feel needed, important, like a good mother." "She is a good mother to you." "No, she's not. She's a manipulator. She kept me dependent because it gave her purpose. Every time I tried to actually get better, really better, she'd sabotage it. She'd give me money when I was supposed to be learning to budget. She'd make excuses when I was supposed to be facing consequences. She kept me sick because she needed me to be sick." I'd never heard Ethan talk like this, clear, honest, self-aware. "What happened to the money?" I asked. "I paid off $300,000 in debts, some to dangerous people, some to casinos, some to dealers. I bought the condo Mom mentioned. That was $450,000. I put $200,000 in a trust that Mom controls, supposedly for my future. The rest went to rehab, a new car, and stupid shit I don't even remember." "So it's gone." "Most of it, the condo's in my name. I could sell it." "To pay me back." He nodded. "It wouldn't be everything, but it's a start. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know I've been a disaster my whole life, but I need you to know I didn't mean to steal from you, and I'm not going to let Mom use me as a shield anymore." "What does that mean?" "It means I'm testifying against her. The DA's office asked me to." I said yes. I sat back stunned. "Ethan, if you do that, the family will." "The family's already destroyed, Caroline. Mom destroyed it. I'm just finally admitting what everyone else has been too afraid to say." We sat in silence for a moment. "There's something else," Ethan said quietly. "Something you need to know before this goes to trial." "What?" "The credit cards." "What credit cards?" His face went gray. "The ones Mom opened in your name." The floor dropped out from under me. "What?" 6 months ago, Mom opened 3 credit cards using your information. She maxed them out, about $87,000 total. She used the money to pay for my last rehab stint and to cover some of Dad's business debts. I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. I found out when the bills started coming to the house. She had them sent there so you wouldn't see them. She told me she'd handle it, that she'd pay them off before you ever knew. But then Grandma died and everything imploded, and she never got around to it. She destroyed my credit. Probably. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Did you know about this when you met me today? I found out yesterday. The detective told me during my interview. That's why I called you. I couldn't let you walk into that courtroom without knowing. I stood up, legs shaking. I need to go. Caroline, wait. I need to process this, alone. I left the coffee shop and somehow made it to my car before I completely broke down. My mother hadn't just stolen my inheritance. She'd committed identity theft, racked up nearly $90,000 in debt in my name, destroyed my credit score. All to fund my brother's addiction and my father's failing business. I called Detective Morrison from my car, barely able to get the words out through my tears. "We know," she said gently. "We found the credit card statements during our investigation. We were going to tell you, but your brother beat us to it." "How bad is my credit?" "Bad. The accounts are in collections. You'll need to file identity theft reports with the credit bureaus and the card companies. We can help with that." "Is this going to ruin me financially?" "No, once you prove identity theft, those debts aren't your responsibility, but it'll take time to clean up, months, maybe a year." "What happens to my mother now?" "More charges. The DA is adding identity theft and credit card fraud to the list. Caroline, I'm sorry. I know this is your family, but your mother is a career criminal. She's been doing this kind of thing for years, and she's very good at it." "Has she done this to other people?" "We're investigating. But between the elder abuse, the forged documents, and the identity theft, we're looking at a pattern of behavior. The DA is pushing for the maximum sentence. After I hung up, I sat in my car in the parking lot and realized something. My mother was going to prison. My father was probably going to be charged as an accessory. My brother was testifying against them both. My entire family was imploding. And it was all because my mother couldn't accept that my grandmother had made a choice she didn't like. I drove home in a daze, walked into my apartment, and found an eviction notice taped to my door. The landlord had filed eviction proceedings based on my mother's false claims. Even though I'd explained it was fraud, even though I'd shown him my payment history, he decided I was too much drama and wanted me out. 30 days to find a new place. I pulled the notice off the door, walked inside, and collapsed on my couch. This was rock bottom. My inheritance stolen. My credit destroyed. My reputation damaged. My family gone. My home being taken. I had nothing left except my job, and given my mother's attempts to sabotage that too, I wasn't even sure how long I'd have it. For the first time in my life, I had no plan, no path forward, no idea how to fix this. I just sat there in the dark and cried. But here's what I didn't know. Rock bottom wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning. Because while I was sitting in that dark apartment, convinced I'd lost everything, something else was happening. Something that would change my life in ways I couldn't imagine. And it started with an email I wouldn't see until the next morning. The email was from Dr. Richard Chen, my boss, sent at 11:47 p.m. Subject: urgent, read immediately. Caroline, I know you're going through hell right now. I've been thinking about our conversation and about everything you're dealing with, and I realize something. You're one of the most brilliant researchers I've ever worked with. Your work on peptide synthesis has been groundbreaking, and you've been wasting your talent on incremental projects because that's what this company values. I'm leaving. I got an offer to start a biotech company focused on rare disease treatments, significant VC funding, complete autonomy, the chance to actually make a difference. I want you to come with me, not as a research director, as my co-founder and chief scientific officer. Equity stake 25%. Salary $200,000 to start. The chance to build something that matters from the ground up. I know the timing is terrible. I know you're dealing with family chaos, but I also know you're capable of more than you've been allowed to do here. Think about it. We'd be starting in 3 months. Richard. I read it 3 times, certain I was hallucinating from exhaustion. Richard Chen wanted me to be a co-founder of a biotech startup with a 25% equity stake. This was insane. This was impossible. This was exactly what I needed. I responded immediately. Richard, yes. When do we start? Caroline. His reply came 2 minutes later. I was hoping you'd say that. Let's meet tomorrow to discuss details. And Caroline, this is going to be the fight of your life. Building a startup while dealing with a criminal trial isn't for the faint of heart. But if anyone can do it, it's you. The next 3 months were a blur. During the day, I worked my notice at the pharmaceutical company while secretly planning the new venture with Richard. During the evening, I dealt with lawyers, credit bureaus, apartment hunting, and preparing for my mother's trial. At night, I barely slept. The startup was called Nexara Therapeutics. Our focus, developing treatments for ultra-rare genetic diseases that Big Pharma ignored because the patient populations were too small to be profitable. It was ambitious, risky, and expensive. But our lead VC investor, a firm called Avalon Ventures, believed in Richard's vision and my scientific expertise enough to commit $15 million in seed funding. I signed my co-founder agreement on the same day I testified at my mother's preliminary hearing. The hearing was brutal. My mother's lawyer tried to paint me as a vindictive daughter, exaggerating a family dispute. He questioned my motives, my timeline, my evidence. But then the prosecutor presented the bank statements, the forged documents, the credit card fraud, the identity theft reports. And Ethan testified. My brother sat in that witness box and methodically destroyed my mother's defense. He explained how she'd manipulated him, how she'd forged documents, how she'd used him as a shield. He was calm, clear, sober. I barely recognized him. My mother's face went from confident to panicked to devastated as she realized her own son was ending her. The judge ruled there was sufficient evidence for trial and denied bail. My mother was taken into custody. As they led her away, she looked at me with such hatred that I actually stepped back. But I also felt something else, free. For the first time in 35 years, I was completely free of her. The trial was set for 6 months out. During those 6 months, 2 parallel tracks ran simultaneously. Track 1, my mother's legal destruction. Track 2, my company's rise. Nexara Therapeutics launched officially in month 4. We rented lab space in a biotech incubator in Cambridge, Massachusetts. I moved from Connecticut to Boston, leaving behind my mother's territory entirely. We hired a small team, 3 researchers, 1 lab manager, 1 business operations person. And we got to work. Our first target, a rare genetic disorder called enzyme deficiency syndrome, affecting approximately 2,000 people worldwide. Current treatment, none. Prognosis, progressive neurological decline and death by age 30. We had an idea for a gene therapy approach that could potentially halt or reverse the disease. It was cutting-edge science, unproven, risky. But if it worked, it would save lives. I threw myself into the work with an intensity that bordered on obsession. 18-hour days in the lab, weekends analyzing data, nights reading research papers. Richard noticed. Caroline, you're going to burn out. I'm fine. You're running from your trauma by drowning in work. I'm building something that's different. He gave me a look that said he didn't believe me, but he also understood. Because he was doing the same thing. We were 2 workaholics building a company that would either change the world or fail spectacularly. No middle ground. Month 5 brought our first breakthrough, preliminary results showing our gene therapy approach worked in cell cultures. It wasn't a cure yet, but it was proof of concept. We published a paper. It got picked up by several scientific journals. Suddenly, people in the rare disease community knew who we were. Families affected by EDS started reaching out, asking about clinical trials, offering to help however they could. It was humbling and terrifying, because now we had hope to live up to. Month 6, my mother's trial began. I took a week off from the lab to attend. The prosecution's case was overwhelming. They had the forged documents, the bank statements, the credit card fraud, the testimony from Ethan, the estate attorney, the notary, even my father, who'd been offered immunity in exchange for testimony. My mother's defense was essentially, I was trying to help my son. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Sentencing was set for 3 weeks later. I sat in that courtroom and watched my mother's face crumble as the verdict was read. She looked at me once and I saw something I'd never seen before, acceptance. She'd lost completely. And she knew it. The judge sentenced her to 12 years in federal prison. My father got 3 years probation for being an accessory after the fact. Ethan was granted immunity for his cooperation. I walked out of that courthouse and felt nothing. No victory, no satisfaction, just exhaustion. But when I got back to Boston and walked into our lab, something shifted. Richard met me at the door with a champagne bottle. What's this? We got our Series A $45 million, led by Avalon, with 3 other firms joining. I stared at him. What? Our preliminary results were good enough. The investors believe we can get to clinical trials within 18 months. They're all in. $45 million in Series A funding. For a company I co-founded 6 months ago. With a 25% equity stake. I did the math in my head. If the valuation was based on a standard Series A dilution, my stake was now worth approximately $22 million on paper. I'd gone from having my $2.3 million inheritance stolen to being worth $22 million in 6 months. By building something real. I started laughing, then crying, then both at once. Richard hugged me awkwardly. "You okay?" My mother's going to prison, my family's destroyed, and I just became a paper millionaire. I have no idea how I'm supposed to feel. Feel however you feel, but also feel proud. You earned this. He was right. I had earned this. Not through inheritance or luck or someone else's money. Through my own intelligence, my own work, my own relentless drive to build something that mattered. That night I called Ethan. He answered immediately. "Caroline, is everything okay?" "Yeah, I just wanted to tell you. I closed the Series A today, $45 million. Silent. Then holy shit. "Yeah. Caroline, that's incredible. I'm so proud of you." "Thanks, how are you doing?" "I'm okay. I'm in a sober living facility, working a real job at a coffee shop, going to meetings. It's not glamorous, but it's honest." "That's good, Ethan, really good. I've been thinking about what you said, about building something real. I don't know if I can build a company like you did, but I'm trying to build a life that's mine. Not mom's project, not dad's disappointment, just mine." That's all any of us can do. We talked for another hour, really talked, in a way we never had before. When we hung up, I realized I hadn't just lost my family in the last 6 months. I'd also gotten my brother back. The next 2 years were a whirlwind. Nexara Therapeutics grew from a team of 6 to a team of 60. We completed preclinical trials, then Phase 1 clinical trials, then Phase 2. Our gene therapy worked. It actually worked. Patients who'd been deteriorating were stabilizing. Some were even improving. The scientific community took notice. We published multiple papers, won awards, got featured in major medical journals. I became a known name in the rare disease world. People started recognizing me at conferences, asking for my autograph, calling me a pioneer. It was surreal. Meanwhile, my mother sat in federal prison. I didn't visit, didn't write, didn't call. My father tried to maintain contact, but I kept him at arm's length. Ethan stayed sober, got promoted to assistant manager at his coffee shop, started taking community college classes. And me. I built. Year 3 brought the biggest moment yet, FDA approval for our gene therapy. We were the first company to successfully bring a treatment to market for enzyme deficiency syndrome. The approval made national news. Rare disease breakthrough, new gene therapy offers hope. The stock market noticed. We'd gone public 6 months earlier to raise capital for manufacturing. Our IPO had valued the company at $890 million. Post-FDA approval, our stock price tripled. New valuation, $2.7 billion. My 25% stake, diluted to about 18% after multiple funding rounds, worth approximately $486 million. I was, on paper, worth nearly $500 million. At 38 years old. I'd gone from having my inheritance stolen to being wealthier than my mother ever dreamed possible. And I'd done it by actually helping people. The day after the FDA approval, I did something I'd been planning for a while. I established the Eleanor Matthews Memorial Fund, named after my grandmother. Purpose: providing free treatment to IDS patients who couldn't afford it. Initial funding: $50 million from my personal shares. I announced it at a press conference, standing in front of cameras, explaining that this was what my grandmother would have wanted. A reporter asked, "Your mother stole your inheritance from your grandmother. Does this feel like justice?" I thought carefully before answering. This isn't about justice. It's about creating the outcome my grandmother intended, using her resources to help people. She wanted me to build something meaningful. I did. This is me honoring her memory the right way. Have you spoken to your mother since her incarceration? No. Do you plan to? I don't know. That's not what today is about. But that question stuck with me. 3 years and I hadn't spoken to my mother once. Part of me felt guilty, part of me felt relieved. All of me was confused about what I was supposed to feel. That night I got a letter. It was from the prison. From my mother. I stared at the envelope for an hour before opening it. Inside was a single page, handwritten. Caroline, I saw the news about the FDA approval. I saw what you've built. I don't have the right to be proud of you, I know that, but I am anyway. I've had a lot of time to think in here, about the choices I made, about Ethan, about you. You were always so strong, so capable, so self-sufficient. I convinced myself you didn't need me, that Ethan needed me more. I was wrong. You didn't need me because I never gave you the chance to need me. I pushed you away with both hands because it was easier to focus on Ethan's crisis than to deal with the fact that my brilliant, successful daughter had built a life I couldn't understand or control. I stole from you, not just money, but your childhood, your achievements, your right to be celebrated and supported. I can't give any of that back. But I want you to know I see what you've become, and you did it despite me, not because of me. That's what I stole from myself, the chance to be part of your success. I don't expect forgiveness, I don't deserve it. But I needed you to know that I finally understand what I lost. Mom, I read it 3 times. Then I put it in a drawer and went to bed. I didn't respond. Not because I was angry, but because I didn't know what to say. Some wounds don't heal just because someone apologizes. Some relationships can't be rebuilt. And that's okay. 6 months later, Nexara Therapeutics was acquired by a major pharmaceutical company for $4.2 billion. My take after taxes, $531 million. At 39 years old, I was worth more than $500 million. I used the money to do 3 things. First, I expanded the Alina Matthews Memorial Fund to cover treatment for 5 other rare diseases. Budget, $200 million. Second, I started a new company focused on developing treatments for diseases that affected fewer than 1,000 people worldwide, the diseases that nobody else would touch because they weren't profitable. Third, I bought my grandmother's house, the one my mother had inherited and then sold to pay for Ethan's debts. I bought it from the current owners for twice what it was worth. Then I turned it into a research center and museum dedicated to rare disease awareness. I named it the Alina Matthews Center. And in the lobby, I put a plaque. In memory of Alina Matthews, who believed in building something meaningful, this center stands as proof that her faith was not misplaced. The opening ceremony made local news. I didn't mention my mother in my speech. But she was there anyway, in every choice I made, every foundation I built. She was there as the example of what not to be. And in a way, that was her legacy too. Epilogue 5 years later. I'm 44 now. Nexara Therapeutics is part of history, the company that proved rare disease treatments could be both effective and profitable. My new company has developed treatments for 8 diseases that previously had none. The Alina Matthews Memorial Fund has provided free treatment to over 3,000 patients. I've been featured in Forbes, Time, and Scientific American. I've won awards, honorary degrees, recognition from patient advocacy groups worldwide. But the moment I'm most proud of happened last month. Ethan, who'd been sober for 7 years, graduated from community college with a degree in social work. He's working now as a counselor at a rehab facility, helping other addicts find their way. He called me after his first week. Caroline, I actually helped someone today, really helped them. This guy was where I was 8 years ago, and I talked him through it. I think I made a difference. You did, Ethan. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of me too, for the first time in my life. We're not close, not the way some siblings are. But we're honest with each other. And that's worth more than closeness built on lies. My father reached out last year, asking to meet. We had coffee, it was awkward. He apologized for his complicity in my mother's crimes, said he should have stopped her years ago. I accepted the apology, but didn't invite him back into my life. Some doors once closed stay that way. My mother got out on parole last month after serving 9 years. She sent me a letter asking if we could talk. I haven't responded yet. Maybe I will someday, maybe I won't. The anger is gone, replaced by something quieter, indifference. She's not my villain anymore. She's just someone I used to know. Someone who tried to destroy me and accidentally set me free. Because here's what I learned. Being stolen from, betrayed, and abandoned by the people who were supposed to love you most can either destroy you or forge you into something unbreakable. I chose unbreakable. I built a life so extraordinary that their betrayal became irrelevant. I created value where they only saw profit. I helped people where they only helped themselves. I became someone my grandmother would be proud of. And their attempt to take everything from me, it just proved I never needed them in the first place. Last week, I got a letter from a patient, a 16-year-old girl with ADS who received our treatment 3 years ago. She wrote, "Dear Dr. Matthews, I wanted you to know that because of you, I'm going to college next year. Before the treatment, I was dying. Now I'm living. You gave me a future. Thank you." I put that letter on my desk, next to my grandmother's photo. And I thought, this is what the money was supposed to be for. Not for Ethan's addiction or my father's debts or my mother's control. For this. For giving a dying girl a future. My mother stole $2.3 million from me. I turned it into $531 million and thousands of lives saved. That's not revenge. That's transcendence. And as I sit here in my office, looking at that girl's letter, I realize I won, not because I destroyed my mother, but because I built something she could never touch. A legacy of healing instead of harm, of creation instead of theft, of becoming instead of being. My grandmother once told me, "Caroline, success isn't about what you have, it's about what you give." I finally understand what she meant. And wherever she is, I hope she knows. I gave everything. And it was worth it.